What if I told you one of the most widespread things you were taught about the past is completely wrong? You have probably heard it in school, seen it in documentaries, and even watched people repeat it online. The story goes that for most of history, people believed the earth was flat, that everyone from peasants to kings thought sailors would fall off the edge if they went too far, and that only brave explorers and clever scientists eventually corrected them. Sounds familiar, right? But what if that story itself is the myth? What if people thousands of years ago knew something? We assume they did not. Let us start with the image most of us were given. A medieval classroom, a parchment map, and a teacher insisting the world was a flat disk floating in space. But here is the twist. That image was never real. The idea that everyone believed in a flat earth, until a few geniuses fixed it, is a modern invention created much later, and repeated so often that it became accepted as fact. To understand what people actually believed, we have to go back long before medieval Europe. Think ancient Babylon, ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. Thousands of years ago, people who never saw satellites or modern ships were already making observations about the earth that might surprise you. They noticed how ships disappeared bottom first over the horizon. They saw how the shape of the earth's shadow curved during an eclipse. These clues were not ignored, they were recorded, studied, and used to shape what they believed. One of the earliest written clues appears in ancient Mesopotamia. Some Babylonian texts use language that suggests the world was a curved surface under the heavens. Egyptians charted the stars with astonishing precision and built monuments aligned to celestial patterns. You do not do that if you think you are living on the top of a dinner plate. But let us go to Greece, because this is where the myth truly collapses. Around the 6th century, BCE, philosophers were already arguing the earth was a sphere. Let that sink in. 2,600 years ago, people were not debating whether the earth was flat. They were debating what held the sphere in place. Pythagoras is often credited as one of the first to promote the spherical idea, but even that was just the beginning. Plato and Aristotle both wrote about the earth as a globe. They gave reasons, not guesses. Aristotle pointed to how travelers in Egypt saw different stars than those in Greece. He mentioned how the shadow of the earth on the moon during a lunar eclipse was always round. That only makes sense if the earth is a sphere. If that is not enough, then look at what Eratosthenes did around 240 BCE. Working in ancient Egypt, he not only believed the earth was round, he calculated its size. Using a well in Syene and a shadow in Alexandria, he used geometry to estimate the earth's circumference. His result was off by just a small margin compared to modern measurements. Think about that. More than 2,000 years ago, someone measured the size of the planet accurately without leaving his country. Yet somehow, we were told that everyone back then thought the world was flat. We also have to look east, because this was not only a Greek idea. In ancient India, Jain thinkers described the earth as a round object in space. Chinese astronomers understood the sky and horizon in ways that suggest they too knew the earth curved. Evidence appears in their star charts and navigation practices. Even in the Islamic Golden Age, scholars like al-Biruni calculated the earth's radius using mountains and horizons. Medieval Arab sailors navigated using the earth's curvature long before European explorers set sail. So where did the idea of a flat earth belief come from? If almost no educated person in antiquity believed in it, why do we think they did? The answer is surprisingly recent. During the 19th century, some writers wanted to create a dramatic story of progress. They wanted to make it look like religion had held back science, and that brave modern thinkers had overcome a long dark age. They exaggerated, they twisted, they created a false version of history that was easier to tell. Teachers then repeated it, and it spread into textbooks. Two names stand out: Washington Irving and John William Draper. Irving wrote a fictionalized biography of Christopher Columbus in 1828. He added a dramatic scene where church leaders warned Columbus he might fall off the edge of the world. The story was exciting, emotional, and completely invented. Draper and others wrote books that claimed medieval people rejected science and believed nonsense. They used these flat earth claims to push the idea of an age of ignorance, that modern science had rescued us from textbook writers. picked it up, adjusted the story for classrooms, and soon generations of students learned a history that never happened. But let us look at medieval Europe specifically. Did common people actually think the world was flat? The answer, again, is no. Medieval scholars routinely taught that the earth was round. Monks copied ancient texts that described the globe. Universities taught the same. Theologians like Thomas Aquinas used the spherical earth as a given. Even while interpreting scripture, illustrations from medieval manuscripts show ships sailing around a curved earth and globes appearing in art. Even common expressions reveal what people thought. In many cultures, words and metaphors about horizons, circles and spheres suggest everyday awareness that the world curved. Sea travelers knew how masts of distant ships appeared before their hulls. People living near wide plains noticed how objects shrank and vanished gradually, not suddenly. Let us bring in the explorers, because surely we were told they took great risks to disprove the flat earth myth. Ferdinand Magellan, whose voyage circumnavigated the globe in the 16th century, did not set out to prove the earth was round. That was already considered true. His goal was to find new trade routes. Columbus also believed the earth was spherical. His argument was about size, not shape. He thought the world was smaller than it was. He was wrong about the distance to Asia, but not about the shape of the earth. There are even medieval diagrams of the earth showing climatic zones wrapped around a spherical world. These drawings were created by scholars who never doubted what shape they lived on. So again, where did this false belief come from? Mostly from modern writers who needed a villain narrative. They portrayed the past as blind so the present could appear enlightened. Now let us talk about why this matters. You might think it is just a harmless mix-up, but it is not. Harmless myths shape how we see the past. They make us believe that ancient people were foolish. They erase the achievements of civilizations that observed, reasoned, and experimented. They also make us underestimate what human beings can figure out without modern technology. Imagine villagers thousands of years ago mapping stars, tracking shadows, and using logic to guess at the shape of the earth. They were not guessing wildly, they were reasoning. Take the example of eclipses again. If the earth was a flat disk, it could not cast a round shadow every time. Yet ancient observers used this pattern as evidence. They did not have telescopes, but they had eyes, curiosity, and time. They recorded what they saw, they compared results, they taught their students. We also cannot ignore navigation. Sailors across the Mediterranean, Indian Ocean, and Pacific relied on the Earth's curvature to predict stars and horizons. They were not surprised by ships disappearing over the horizon, nor did they think crew members would vanish into the abyss. Mariners knew how to use angles, winds, and star positions to travel far from land. That demands knowledge of a curved world. So when someone says everyone thought the world was flat, they are talking about a myth, a false memory invented long after the fact. Now here is a twist. Even though most educated ancient and medieval people accepted a round earth, there were isolated individuals who did not. Some religious literalists in different eras tried to model the world as flat, but they were rare and often ignored by mainstream thinkers. Their ideas did not dominate schools, libraries, or courts. They were footnotes, not authorities. Next time someone claims people once thought ships would fall off the edge, remember that this image was painted in the 19th century by writers who wanted dramatic conflict. They liked the idea of brave navigators challenging a stupid world, and we still repeat it because it sounds like a good story. But the true story is even better. It tells us that ancient civilizations were not clueless. They observed the sky and sea with care. They debated ideas. They preserved knowledge across continents. Greek and Egyptian scholars influenced Islamic astronomers, who influenced European thinkers. Knowledge moved across cultures like trade goods. If you want a symbol of how long humans have known the earth is round, just look at the word itself, globe. The word has ancient roots, and globes were made long before the first telescope. Nobody would carve a sphere to represent the earth if they pictured it as flat. So why does the flat earth myth survive? The reason is simple. It is catchy and easy to repeat. People like dramatic tales of ignorance being shattered. They like to feel superior to their ancestors. Yet the more we learn about history, the more we see that people have been observing, calculating, and testing for thousands of years. They were not perfect, but they were not ridiculous either. This myth fades as we look at primary sources, ancient philosophers, medieval scholars, Islamic astronomers, Chinese mathematicians. They disagreed about many things, but the shape of the earth was not usually one of them. Even early Christian thinkers like Augustine and Bede did not deny the earth's roundness. They focused on other debates. Yet modern storytellers ignored this nuance in favor of a flat earth narrative that never truly existed. So now you know. The real myth was the belief that people believed a myth. They did not need rockets to understand the planet they lived on. They used shadows, waves, stars, and logic. And long before our textbooks existed, they had already drawn the right conclusion. If this surprised you, imagine how many other things we think we know about history might also be false. Every time we accept a simplified story, we risk losing the truth hidden underneath. That is why this channel exists. To pull apart these legends and find out what really happened. If you want more myths debunked with real evidence, hit subscribe and stick around, because this is just one of many stories the past got right, and we somehow got wrong. Let me know in the comments which myth you were taught that turned out to be false, and if you want to see the next one exposed, you will not want to miss what is coming next.